And guess who's back? Straight shooting, straight shooting. Bap, bap. You can count on us for telling you as it is all the time, every time. I must say, one of the most, because I really enjoy doing this, one of the most interesting things about this show is just the civic education part. That I must say, and begin with a disclaimer. I was talking to just one of my counterparts for work recently, and she said something very interesting to me, and that really gave me impetus to continue doing what I do. She said, I enjoy watching your show because I actually watch the news, and thanks for the numbers, guys. The numbers are looking good. You know, even haters are watching, and the ironic thing about media is even the haters who are watching, bad publicity becomes good, of good value in the long run. And she said, you know, I watch the news and everything, but the more I watch your show, and when I come to think about it, I almost watch news almost like entertainment, because I watch news, but I never really know what's going on. That says a lot. That says a lot. You know, I watch the news, like now Mandamano is back, but it had stopped, and why? It's all kind of convoluted, and that's where we come in. So today we're going to talk about Trump, President Trump. Soon we're going to talk about Uhuru, and I'm going to do you guys justice by taking time to do some good research and some good thinking through everything we're discussing, so that I give you a fair and balanced, rich, potent, complete picture. Not just demonizing someone, not just name calling, not just, shooting or kicking someone down, but just a good balanced picture where you're like, you know what, this is who this person is. And when we do that, then that will be of value to you. Not just entertainment value, but even as you are in traffic or in your office, going through the motions of the day, and you kind of watch this, we're very aware there's most of the guys who want to talk about sex and whatnot. That's fine. Let them do that. We'll do our thing here where we leave you enriched, enlightened, empowered. You understand, you know what's happening in your country and why, and even around the world. So today we'll talk about Trump. We'll call the show Trump Trouble. Trump Trouble. So, Donald Trump.
I don't know what I said. I don't remember.
I first heard about Trump when I first got to the States in 1995. In fact, I was listening to a rap song the other day by Nas off his album, the I Am album, which is a fantastic album. And guess who's in there? Trump is in there in that album. And Trump is talking about Trump and his women. So Trump has always been a handful. And it's because of all this publicity and whatnot that Trump thought, why don't I run for president? He used to be a Democrat. Then he became a Republican. Very Kenyan kind of behavior. And ran as a Republican and won and became president. So the first thing I'm going to talk about, and by the way, big thanks to my production team. They really try. Izo, Sean, these guys just put their all to make sure that we give you guys a good show, a show that looks good. Look at the lighting, look at the setting, look at everything. I just feel really good, and sometimes I like to say thank you. That's just in my character. So as we proceed to give you what you need, Trump is trouble. Trump is lots of trouble. And what's been very interesting to me as an analyst is just to kind of understand, first of all, why does Trump carry favor with Africans? You know, a lot of Kenyans like Trump. They support Trump. They may not say it very loudly, but they do. And Trump is a mess. Trump is a hot potato. Trump is a racist. So by the time I do a broadcast, I have my facts. I have my research. I know what I've looked at and what I'm looking at, and why I'm saying the things that I do. And so such things as, the Stockholm Syndrome, philosophy, the sympathy Africans have for their oppressors, the admiration with which we gaze upon our ethnic kingpins, the pride with which we like to see them have a good time, drive big cars, go to nice parties. It's baffling. And so you can imagine my surprise through all of the, because I followed not just the election, which I made it clear which side I supported and why, but also the Trump presidency, which was, for all intents and purposes, just complete and utter chaos from day one. So Trump breaks a record, and he will be in history books, being arraigned in court last week over all manner of charges, allegations, because it's a court process. He's not guilty until he's found to be guilty. So you are innocent until proven guilty. But by the time you arraign him in court, I can tell you just from my following and my research, Trump has been dodging court for the last almost 40 years. And it's been on all manner of issues, not just one issue or one aspect. And just his behavior last week after flying his own jet, of course, we as Miros, we like that. We look at that with a lot of admiration, and his tough talking self, etc. Trump left court and went to where he has, so Trump's originally from New York. New York is busy, tough space. The kind of music and the kind of language that comes out of New York is not baby stuff. New York is guns, it's many, many things. And Florida is where retirees go. There's good weather, it's beautiful, there's a lot of palm trees, etc. So Trump went and bought an estate in Florida and kind of ran away from New York because New York is also a blue state. So politics there is very ideological. Blue states, red states. Blue states, the Democrats more progressive, more inclusive, very open-minded when it comes to things like immigration, abortion rights, human rights, minority rights, workers' rights, that kind of thing. The red states more traditional, more conservative, close the borders. Why are we in the UN? Why are we giving money to the poor? We shouldn't. Love your country, defend it, close it, stop allowing Mexicans and Africans to immigrate here, that kind of thing. So it's very ideological. The politics are very ideologically based. It's not about tribe. Sisi Waluya, Wakisi wanaenda. No, it's very ideological. So Trump leaves court, rushes back to Florida, which is traditionally a red state, so he feels a bit safe there. Remember, he likes to rally crowds, kind of like what Raila does, rally the anger. And he actually tried to overthrow the government while he himself was president. So Trump has done a lot of messes, and that's what I'm trying to do this show, to explain to folks why we are where we are. And, America is the leader of the world. The whole world is watching. So Trump leaves court, convenes a press conference, and immediately insults the prosecutor, Alvin Bragg, who's the one who's doing the case in New York. Now, politics gets into everything. I understand his pain, his grievances, that there's too much politics in this, that Alvin Bragg is, a Democrat, that his wife contributes to the Democratic Party, etc., etc. Just to quote Trump, that these are thugs, these are criminals. But, that's very dangerous language. That's very dangerous behavior. That's very extremely unbecoming. And you have to allow, institutions to do their work, and they will do their work. America is not like what Kenya is today. They are blind to your power. They're blind to your money. They don't really care that you're a sitting president or a former president or what have you. The FBI director, and by the way, this Alvin Bragg guy, he just took over from what the former FBI director who had done Mueller, who had done the Mueller investigation, he just came short of charging Trump because at the time, Trump was a sitting president. And Mueller really wanted to nail him, but couldn't. So Alvin Bragg took the opportunity to nail him. And my prediction is that there will be more, because a lot of things have been suppressed over the years. There will be more allegations and accusations coming in. From when I first heard of Trump in 1995, he first had and always has had very serious tax dodging issues. So he doesn't pay his fair share. The evidence will show that.
He brilliantly used the laws to avoid paying taxes. Well,
and it's something he's done for many years, so it falls right under the ambit of what we now call white privilege.
he paid zero at least for about 20 years, we believe, now, based on what we know.
If Barack Obama, for example, behaved like Donald Trump, he would be marched out of the White House in handcuffs, and he would be lynched. It just wouldn't, together with Michelle. But we hold different standards for black people as opposed to white people. And that's just how the world is, though we're changing it every day. By talking about these things and by calling for the changes that need to happen to be put in place. So just to give you a small flashback, because again, for our Kenyan audience, we're very limited. Kenyans don't understand, how are you even having a discussion about a president being arraigned in court? I remember former President Kibaki appearing in court on a family land matter, and people didn't even know what to think. I mean, just the humility of the former president, just going in there in his slow fashion. He was old, by that time, almost 90, and he just sat there calmly and then gave his testimony. A lot of Kenyans just thought Kibaki was too humble for life, too simple, unnecessarily so. And so this is the school of thought they were coming from. Trump got impeached. Trump got impeached and escaped removal. Trump didn't get impeached once. Trump got impeached twice. And prior to the impeachment, Trump had absolute and total chaos on a daily basis. A lot of people don't follow because they're busy, but they're like, how did we get to this? Well, I'll tell you how. Trump got impeached, and the background on this impeachment built over his differences and his war with decorated veteran Senator, the late John McCain. John McCain, the same John McCain who ran against Barack Obama in 2008. And John McCain was a war hero. John McCain had been shot down in Hanoi in Vietnam during the Vietnam War of 1967. And in the competition for the ticket for the Republican Party, because John McCain is a Republican as well, Trump in typical fashion just gets into these personal, vitriolic attacks, just full of so much bile for McCain, who's a hero. So that was one of the first, difficulties that, a lot of what he called the system, the deep state. And why this is very, very interesting is because in this case, in Kenya, when we talk about deep state, and I'm one of the authors of the initial conversations on deep state in Kenya, because I just took time to understand what is the deep state, how does it operate, etc. And a lot of people up to today, as evidenced by the election of a few months ago, 2022, still don't understand the deep state. They still don't understand how the deep state works, because they were sure they had the deep state against the deputy president. And then it turns out that the deputy president actually always had the deep state. And anyone who is not very well versed in this, they're completely lost, because the president in Kenya had a favorite candidate, was funding a campaign, was speaking against his own deputy, etc. How then does it happen that his deputy kind of overturns his boss's, the sitting president's authority, and actually becomes president against the wishes of his boss? So this has been a kizungumkuti big time, and that's why giving you this background really helps. Trump got impeached because, and I had this discussion offline before we came on air. A president's phone or phone call is public property. Even my producer doesn't know that. The president is number one public property. His phone calls are listened to even by enemy states. You guys don't know that? The call has to be monitored by military intelligence. The call is monitored by National Intelligence Service. The calls are listened to by, I don't want to name countries here, but you can imagine Israel, the US, the UK, MI6, etc. They don't want to know what you're doing. They want to know who you're talking to and about what. For obvious reasons. They don't want you building alliances, and especially now in the age of terror, etc. And so, in typical American fashion, President Trump was trying to cut a deal with Ukraine, president to president, and he made an offer that was kind of inappropriate. He tried to bribe another president. And so Colonel Vindman, and the craziest part is that Colonel Vindman is himself an immigrant. He's an American citizen now, but a guy who came from another country, born in the 70s. And as an immigrant, it gives you a really good foundation because you're juxtaposing your current situation in Washington against your childhood, against where you came from. And Colonel Vindman was appalled. He was outraged. He went to his boss. He's like, "Are you kidding me?" And he was in MI himself, actually in uniform. He even testified later in front of Congress, etc. He's like, "I was on the call this afternoon and I heard the president with my own ears. This is America. This is unacceptable." And that small action snowballed into a whole bunch of things that then led to Trump getting impeached. Of course, as he's getting impeached, it just pissed him off more and made him do more mistakes and do more outrageous things, which then led to even a second impeachment, but not a removal, because the Republicans then ran to protect him as one of their own, and he didn't get removed. But first, how did Trump win? Trump lost the 2016 election that made him president by 4 million votes. He lost by 4 million votes to Hillary Clinton. But the way the system is set for representation, we don't use the popular vote, all right, of 165 million votes, which is unthinkable votes. We use the Electoral College, which you have to hit 270 to become president. So Hillary is getting so many votes in all these other... The reason for that is distribution of the vote. Because if you didn't have that kind of distribution, let me explain this in a simple way, you could have 10 cities voting for president. It's a situation we're almost kind of facing here in Kenya, where people say if you can rally the Kalenjin tribe, for example, and the Kikuyu tribe together. This happened, what was it called? Tyranny of Numbers in 2012, 2013 by Mutahi Ngunyi. Then you can become president. So it's another way of saying, that the population of Nairobi, Kiambu, just as an example, Nairobi, Kiambu, and Mombasa, as an example, and Nakuru, that those populations alone can always determine the presidency. Whereas you need universal suffrage, all Kenyans from Busia to Mtongwe to Kakamega and everywhere in between to have a part in determining what the leadership is like. So Trump actually lost by 4 million votes, but he became president. Just to give a bit of history, in 1973, and where Trump came from, Trump is the second born of a guy called Fred Trump. So Fred was a really wealthy real estate magnate, developer, a guy like David Masika of Lloyd Masika. And Trump had an elder brother, but again, the way they were raised even in those days, Trump was born in 1945 like Raila. His father was not impressed with his firstborn, so he ignored him and chose Donald. Okay? So worked closely with Donald, left his entire inheritance of over $200 and something million to Donald, and worked with him all through. So in essence, and even when Trump had issues, the dad bailed him out many, many, many times. Sometimes in cash, because Trump ran some casinos, by the way, in Nevada, where they do all the casinos, etc. And ultimately it was found that his casino businesses failed because just the way he is in person, he got so aggressive, all right? He got so aggressive So he did the casino business very well. It's very cash intensive. Then what he did is he kind of got greedy. So Trump set up his casino business. Then he set up other smaller casino businesses. So what happened is eventually his smaller casino businesses and the big business eventually ended up competing against each other and, in essence, eating one another. So it was cannibalism of sorts. And that's so they brought all the casinos down, so to speak. And at some point, I remember his dad putting something together like $3 million in cash years ago just to kind of keep his casino business afloat. So, yes, he's worked hard and he's aggressive, but he was a favorite. And they had an issue in 1973 where the state of New York found that Fred Trump and his son Donald, who then became president, were deliberately and very willfully refusing to rent their properties out to black people just on basis of race. So that is definition of racism. I think they paid a fine and then they tried to rectify that, etc. Some other time in 1993, I think it was, Trump took out an ad in the newspaper and called for the killing of some young black boys who had been suspected to be thugs. It was found eventually that they were innocent, but he actually called for these scum, these vermin, that they're dirty, that they're making America not what it should be, that they should be not even tried in court. They should be quickly found guilty and hanged. And this is the kind of thing. You remember when he was doing his campaign, talking and saying things like Mexicans shouldn't be coming into the country. They're coming across the border. They're rapists. They're robbers. I mean, making such blanket statements. It's like me saying all Luos are, you know what I mean? That's terrible. All Luyas are, all Kambas are, all Kikuyus are thieves. You can't be running for president proclaiming those kinds of, views. And so this was absolutely, just what his track record is. So what he did is, through his campaign, he was able to breach the blue wall. What is a blue wall? There's traditionally the states that Democrats win. And there's the states even that are guaranteed joint. So Hillary assumed Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and even Minnesota. Minneapolis, Minnesota. That she didn't work hard enough, and Trump really tried. And once he breached that blue wall, he was done. This was a big blunder on the part of Hillary, who was then Secretary of State and was supported by the incumbent President Barack. So it was a huge embarrassment. But Barack, because he's young and he's very sharp and strategic, lived long enough to avenge this through his then Vice President Biden, current president. But Barack also exploited certain things because he's a black guy, he goes really hard for Trump, who's a white guy, who has a track record as a racist, so Trump can't really return fire. So, brilliant strategy, if you guys understand what I mean. During that whole campaign, Trump was caught on a microphone. You remember the whole thing? I grab him by the pussy, blah, blah, blah. I just start kissing them. And when Trump was cornered on his remarks, his response, like a big baby, was, "Oh, Bill Clinton has told me much worse on the golf course." So a really, juvenile, irresponsible, crazy approach. In fact, if you look at those comments very, very carefully, in a sense, and considering the Me Too movement context, where R. Kelly and all these other big guys have been found with very big problems, you could almost argue that these kind of sentiments, support rape. And that's a serious problem and a serious crime. Trump then became president, and every day was chaos, all manner of issues. And then the first thing again about the deep state was he's then started cautioning that, the deep state is against me as president. They're trying to rig me out. Votes have been found in the Potomac River in Michigan, all manner. So he started making all manner of allegations and trying to rally the people. And by the way, Remember, the difference between the US and Kenya, for example, is the Second Amendment gives the right to bear arms. So let's just say, for purposes of argument, that all Americans are armed. Everyone has a gun. Just imagine that. I mean, this is how sophisticated this country is. Everyone has a gun. There's too many shootings. That's terrible, and that's a fact, and it's so unacceptable. But just look at the normalcy of this country that has the best weapons in the world, and citizens are also armed. Trump then, as president, calls Georgia, a state I lived in, a beautiful state, calls the Secretary of State, what's this guy, Brad Raffensperger, calls him on phone. Again, this is, the phone is not a private line. He calls him and says, hey, Brad, hello, Mr. President. Look, we have a problem. They're trying to rig me out. I've been saying the deep state is against me. I need you to find, for me to win that state, for me to have a chance, the red states I must win. And in this case, and I commended on Twitter and also I commended the state of Georgia for turning blue. We could see for the last 10 years or so, 5 to 10 years, that Georgia was steadily, slowly becoming blue because of the immigration and the growth of such amazing cities as Atlanta that are minority-driven cities. If you want to see blacks that are well-educated, well-polished, earning good money, doing legitimate businesses, running big corporations, go to Atlanta. You'll see that. And so, because it was a narrow win, everything starts small and grows. The president calls Brad Raffensperger and says, Secretary of State, now that's like Ruto calling the IEBC chairman or his deputy. Almost like what Raila tried to do with Cherera. Says, find me 11,780 votes. Now, America is not Uganda. You cannot be doing stuff like that. Maybe in the early 1930s and the 1920s, during the Al Capone regime, that's where America was those many, many, many years ago. With that kind of corruption, later the mafia and all of that. But America today, you cannot, as president, get away with that. You cannot. The free media, the Congress. Remember Nancy Pelosi in Congress during the State of the Union? The president read his speech and she just stood there in front of all the cameras, watched by the entire world, and just stood there and tore his speech to shreds because she doesn't agree with his style, with his politics, with nothing. It's not like this handshake crap that we have here where you don't agree with anything, but now you try to say, let's find a handshake so we can all loot and eat together. This is more sophisticated politics where lines are drawn and you don't cross those lines. Her husband, by the way, got attacked the other day because it gets also very personal. Got attacked in his home, but survived the attack and was hospitalized. And we must commend, there by law, if you call 911, by law, the police will be at where that call is coming from. In most states, it's within 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Minutes. Whether it's done home, whether it's anywhere. If you call 999, and I did this work with Senator Omtata, my friend, before he became elected. The whole thing on the emergency response line. It's a 2-minute, 3-minute response. So that happened. So Trump is rough, he's crazy, he respects nothing and no one, and always courts anarchy. As president, he never really filled his government positions. Trump always had vacancies, many, many vacancies, and picked people from television. If he sees you on television, he thinks you can, praise him, understand him, work with him. He'll just pick you immediately, but he always had vacancies. He'll hire you from TV, then he'll fire you on Twitter. So you don't even know you're fired, but it's on Twitter. He got removed from Twitter. He's refused to come back to Twitter himself. My prediction, he will be charged again. He'll face more charges. Trump has been accused of rape, not by one woman or two or three or four. Trump's been accused of rape. He's been accused now of even the whole thing of the January 6th, uprising where he tried to incite the public to overthrow. They even tried to kidnap his vice president, Pence, because Pence refused to take illegal actions that the president asked him, gave him illegal orders to go and refuse to certify the returns that then cleared the way for Joe Biden to be declared president. So he tried to do that as well. He's had tax dodging issues before. He has had racial, all manner of racist, accusations, and even, sexist. And I think that he's going to be so bogged down legally that the best decision for him would probably be not to run, because he's also dragging the Republican Party with him in this. And such senior people as former President George W. Bush don't support this style of politics. And in America, that means a lot. It means opposition. It means big money opposition. It's just really peculiar that this country at this point finds itself with the front runners, both approaching 80 years old. So I like what Joe Biden has tried to do. I just kind of feel bad that, it's such a big job. It's such a big office. I just feel bad that he has even suffered COVID before and has to, continue to work so hard at such an advanced age. I just wish I wish we could buy back some 10 years. I wish he was younger. But all this is really important when it comes to looking at democracy, institutions, the institution of the presidency, how the holder of the office should conduct themselves, how they should work in tandem with other, agencies within government, how they should lead from the front, how they should exercise leadership and integrity, how they should uphold and defend and respect the Constitution of the Republic. I mean, this is all interesting. And most interesting to me, and this is all very important, most interesting to me is how Trump continues to behave so badly, but in the eyes of most Kenyans, he's someone they can relate with. They feel that he's justified, they admire his bad behavior, they support it. So what does that say about us? Straight shooting. Ask the questions, send comments. We're on YouTube. If you just do Benji Ndolo, boom, you get in there, subscribe. You can email me, by the way, Benji at One Kenya Group, ONE Kenya, onekenyagroup.org. But guys, just keep emailing and asking for jobs. Why am I going to get jobs for you guys, Bana? So let's keep at this. Subscribe, tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. Get that knowledge, get that background. Suggest topics. We'll do a good job. We do good due diligence, and then we bring the show as it's supposed to be. We want to talk about Trump today. Soon we'll talk about Uhuru and also about what is happening. There's a new book out. Thanks for the video for Raila. Because it was fair and balanced, it's gotten a lot of views. So there's a book out on that. I'll look at that. We'll talk about that at some point down the line. But you can count on me to snipe, to shoot, without going around corners, without diluting anything, without favoritism or bias of any sort. So thanks for watching. Keep it here. Tuko pamoja. We are together. For those watching in Washington, etc., tuko pamoja. Yay.